David Black. He is the minister of the First Presbyterian Church of Chicago, who was shot in the head with pepper balls while praying in front of an ICE facility. Also joining us, pastor of Highland Park Presbyterian Church, the Reverend Quincy Worthington, who has also been at the protests and has endured pepper bullets and tear gas while there. And with me at the table, Democratic strategist and Columbia University professor, MSNBC political analyst Basil Smikle is here. Let me start with you, Reverend Black, because these images at a time when a lot of people feel like too much is coming at them really stopped everything, stopped the conversation. We played them during the broadcast on Wednesday. I received a flood of people who couldn't believe that this had happened. So I guess my first question is how are you? And two, what are we to do with the despair or anger that we felt when we saw this happen to you?
Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you for asking how I'm doing. I'm recovering. I've had a respiratory issue ever since that attack, and it seems to be connected. To your question about despair, I would just encourage everyone who is watching these protests to witness this as a moment of world building. That these protesters are actively building and rebuilding a democracy where everyone can live where they choose to belong, where our neighbors can return and live at peace in our communities with us.
How do we get to the peace part when we're seeing parents and people who've been here for decades, people who haven't lived in the countries where they are from for decades, snatched off streets and deported?
It's very disturbing. And, you know, people have been witnessing this violence against me and other pastors and press in broad daylight. Trying to imagine what might be happening to our neighbors who have been abducted and are being held in confinement behind closed doors is just horrifying. I find my hope by consistently looking towards the valor and the joy and the peacefulness of the protesters who have been gathering at Broadview. I've been joining them as a minister and as one witnessing the gospel and the hopefulness that brings me. Jesus proclaimed that the end of the world is good news because a new creation is at hand. And I think that new creation is coming to life in America at this moment. To the terror of this administration and ICE agents and people who are clinging to very old and very violent ways.
What do you see in the protests that you describe as joy?
Thank you for asking that. There is such a deep sense of solidarity and mutual aid in these protests. Protesters are gathering in a way that is totally pluralistic and autonomous. This group has no leaders. It has no sponsors. It's a group of people who are in love with their neighbors and in love with their communities and showing up to be in solidarity with people who cannot speak right now, who are hiding in their homes or who have already been abducted and disappeared. I've read that thousands of people have disappeared and cannot be accounted for since they've been kidnapped by ICE. So the people who are gathering are doing it out of a profound sense of love. And we're gathering to sing and pray and chant and sometimes speak words of condemnation. But fundamentally, this is an act of solidarity and a deep desire for those who are inside the facility to know that they are not alone. That they can hear our voices and know that we are with them and we are for them. And we will seek justice for them and for them to return to our communities where they belong.
Reverend Worthington, let me bring you in on this. If you could just paint a picture of what you're seeing in your community and what you want people to know who may be disturbed by the images, but we're obviously not standing there with you. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, I think over the past month or so, what I've seen, I can only describe as it's like watching the kingdom of heaven smash against the gates of hell repeatedly. Thinking about your question, I'm always brought back to the quotation from A.J. Musk that there is no way to peace, the way is peace. And what I've witnessed among the group of protesters that I kind of view myself as a chaplain to at this point is people peacefully protesting, practicing their First Amendment rights, fighting for their neighbors as best they can, to be met with such brutality. And instead of responding with hatred or violence of their own, what I witnessed is seeing them fall back, care for one another, flush the pepper spray out of each other's eyes, make sure everyone's okay, and then rally to go back up front to, again, voice their love for their neighbor and the protection of all people in this country. And it's been one of the most horrifying and most beautiful things I have ever seen.
Reverend Worthington, when people ask you if it's safe to be out on the protests or to bring their kids to the protests, what do you say?
I think there are different levels of safety. I would, with the way ICE has been escalating the response to the protests, I caution us to ever say that it's safe there. But I think we do as best we can to provide a peaceful and safe environment. And there are different levels of risk that you can take at these. This morning, we were gathered with clergy from all denominations and walks of life to serve an interfaith communion service at Broadview in the hopes of maybe also being able to take it into the detainees. And the feeling there today, especially after these recent court rulings, was one of joy, was one of hope. There was a lot of dancing. So today was a good day, and it was a very peaceful day. And it would have been something I would have been glad to have anybody join us for.
I mean, Reverend Worthington, I asked you that because I can hear my viewers, and sometimes I read them directly asking me, we're seeing what's happening, but we don't know what to do. And one of the things that I think people want to do is to be in the streets. But I think that the design of the Trump administration is to make them afraid. And that is, at least from the outside.
The state of emergency is in America, not Chicago, and is birthed from this president and his administration. Dr. King said he could not raise his voice against the violence of the oppressed without having first spoken clearly to the greater purveyor of violence, his own country. And those are my words to you, Mr. Trump. Before you dare speak about any violence in Chicago, look into your mirror and address the violence coming from the White House.
Pastor was shot in the head with what appears to be a kind of pepper ball projectile while speaking outside an ICE detention facility in the Chicago suburb of Broadview. I want to warn you, some viewers may find the video of that incident upsetting. The Department of Homeland Security says those, quote, agitators were blocking an ICE vehicle and throwing bottles. In his own words, that man, Reverend David Black, said, quote, I told them there was still time to repent, believe the good news, and turn from their wicked ways. That's when they opened fire. And again, this is all just the beginning. Today, NBC News is reporting the White House is now holding serious discussions about invoking the Insurrection Act of 1807, a law that the White House believes would allow Trump to marshal federal troops to act as law enforcement agents in our cities without nearly as many legal constraints over how those troops could operate. It would be, I think, akin to a kind of declaration of war against the people of this country with no actual legitimate justification. There is no insurrection. One person close to the White House telling NBC the debate over the Insurrection Act is working its way up an escalatory ladder. What we are seeing in Chicago sure looks like the opening move in a larger vision for this country, where the leader consolidates power to harness state, local, and federal police in cooperation with the U.S. military, which is trained to defend America from foreign threats and instead unleashes them against Americans.
I see the guns and bats in this room. You are unleashed. The handcuffs that you're carrying, they're not on you anymore. They're on the criminals. And whatever you need to get it done, we're going to get it done. State, local, federal, on President Trump's promise, we are going to get it done.
The pretext in all of this has been fighting criminals. But Stephen Miller and Donald Trump want to treat Americans who do not support their agenda like enemies, like people the U.S. is engaged in war against. And I've got to say, the response we're seeing against that vision in cities like Chicago is really actually inspiring, emboldening. I mean, despite being far less willing to weigh into American politics than his predecessor, the new Pope, Pope Leo, who is from Chicago, is calling out Trump's overreach. In remarks to bishops visiting him at the Vatican today, the Holy Father urged them to use the pulpit to speak out against Trump's draconian immigration policies. This administration has decisively lost the moral high ground on this issue. People at a deep level understand that what they are seeing in Chicago is wrong. They know that they are free citizens of a free country that we spent hundreds of years at trying to achieve and perfect. They know they have a right to film ICE and even to peacefully, verbally challenge ICE. They have a right to protest, to stand outside detention centers, to try and shame people that are committing what they believe to be grave injustices. And the fact that they are continuing to do that, even in the face of this onslaught, is a testament to the fact that Americans will not be intimidated. Just like a certain Chicago delivery cyclist outmaneuvered ICE last week.
What's up?
Jacob Soboroff is MSNBC's national political.
You see there, those ministers, those pastors, those clergymen, they're saying, Donald Trump, we don't want you here. We want you here maybe even less than the other people. Like, there's no emergency here. Well, there is an emergency, and you are the emergency. You're causing it. Your assault on human dignity is the emergency. And it's no surprise to me, it's a surprise to a lot of people, but it's no surprise to me that Christian clergy are leading a charge against the worst of Trumpism. Whether it's these men that I showed you in this video, or whether it's Pope Leo, who's come out and attacked Trump on immigration. He's attacked him on the hypocrisy of pro-lifers supporting violence in the street and the death penalty. He's criticized them on his attacks on workers. Like, all of this demonstrates to me is that people need to stop putting folks into boxes, right? Republicans and some Democrats do this. They just assume, Christian, Republican base. So Republicans assume that, but Democrats sometimes do as well. When in reality, these people are probably on economics, especially, more progressive than the average Democrat in Congress. Maybe, probably more similar to Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mamdani than they are the moderate Democrats. And it's like, these could be powerful allies in progress. And what they're saying is that the anti-Christian sentiment, not in the sense like, they're saying that they're agnostic or they're atheist, but the actual opposition to Christian values as expressed by Jesus in the Gospels is not coming from Antifa. It's not coming from most of the Democrats in Congress right now. It's mostly coming from MAGA. It's mostly coming from the GOP. It's mostly coming from right-wing billionaires and whatnot. That's where it's coming from. The anti-Christian sentiment is from Donald Trump. That's what's happening. And they're saying, we don't want that BS in our church.